we heard from Scott Frost for the first time
How about that
this week. Dennis Dodd from CBS, based out of Kansas City, was out in Phoenix, and he had a sit-down interview with Frost. And, you know, the story, I think that one of the parameters was he was not going to talk about Nebraska.
Pretty clear.
Which I think that's the smart move, because no matter what you say about Nebraska, if you're Scott Frost, it's not going to come off good.
No, and some people would be critical of the writer for entering into a deal like that. But if you don't get the interview, and you don't get Scott Frost saying that he's dying. And I'm glad I'm glad Dennis put that in his tweet, that Scott is dying for a chance to coach again. I thought that was really, that was his first quote of the story. And that was the proper quote to lead with. It's interesting to hear 49-year-old Scott Frost, after being away 2 years, after watching 52 head coaching jobs open, 52 since he's been a head coach have opened. He didn't get them. He didn't get it. Not that he would have been interested in all 52, but now he wants to be a coach. That was the dying part, was illuminating to me. And as was a little bit, he said, I'd be happy to be a coordinator.
It's amazing what he wrote, though, about Frost winning. It was the Broyles Award, the National Coach of the Year at Central Florida.
The assistant coach,
but
he did win.
He won the National Coach of the Year award,
yeah.
Whatever that one's called.
Yeah,
and he can't get a sniff.
Well, now hold on. I don't know that that's true. I think he's gotten some sniffs. I know he got one for sure.
Well, I know he was at UAB.
Right.
He talked.
That's
to
a sniff.
He went down there.
That's a sniff.
And, you know, I think Florida Atlantic was on his radar, but,
yeah,
you know, obviously he probably has his eyes set on something with, you know, in the upper groups.
I think so, but is that realistic? A head coaching job at a Power 5 school for Scott Frost, to a 16-31 in Nebraska? 16-31, Sean. Mike Riley was 19-19.
I think
Frost was 16-31.
I think his path back, though, is finding a good coordinator job somewhere.
Okay, maybe. I think his path back might be going to be a quarterbacks coach, assistant quarterbacks coach. Just get in somewhere. If I were Frosty, I wouldn't be too picky.
And with this new rule,
yeah,
there'll be opportunities.
I think so. I would hope so. I mean, if he doesn't get in now under the parameters that you laid out earlier, 650 new jobs just in the power conferences or so. Let's just say it's 500 new jobs. He can't get into that with his resume?
With his connection to Ryan Day and Chip Kelly.
You think Ohio State would be an option?
Ohio State, you would think, would have something for him to be involved.
Yeah.
I mean, that would make sense. But again, you get the sense him and his family are not interested in to leave Phoenix. They love it there. So,
well, you wonder if he'd be the type of coach that would just go work and his wife would stay. And that happens more than people know. Happens a lot.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. Because look, the shelf life of a coach now, if it's lucky to be 4 years.
It's a wicked profession.
Like,
it's a wicked profession.
That's why the Bo Pelini staff, I mean, you had guys like John Papuchis here, 7 seasons? I mean, that's unheard of now.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get.
I don't know about unheard of, but it's more rare than it has been.
It's really rare.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I mean, the odds of the guy that recruited you being at the school that you're at, it's pretty tough. It's not as high anymore.
No, you're right. So what will become of Scott? I don't know. I would think he can get back in, though, in some capacity. It'll be, and I think Nebraska fans are interested. I'm not suggesting all would cheer for him, but I think they'll always be interested in his whereabouts.
Knowing him like we do, I bet he's just bored out of his mind right now.
Well, he has an active mind. He's extremely intelligent. Now, I say active mind. What the hell does that mean? He's always trying something, you know? So yeah, I guarantee you, come on, he's 49 years old. He's been in football all his life. He said he's always had a next step. He was a player, then he was a grad assistant, then he was an assistant, and then he was a coordinator, then he was a head coach. It's always been next step, next step, next step. Steps ran out. Happens too. Peter Principal got him. I mean, Peter Principal got Bill Callahan. He was just probably moved one step too high. I think Frost what I hope is what you kind of alluded to, is that he will become a coordinator. Now, I don't know if he'll start in
or a QB's coach.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll start back as a coordinator, but maybe the path would be just get on as a QB's coach or a receivers coach, and then work your way into a coordinator role. You still have time, although at 49 o'clock, the clock's ticking fast now.
Yeah, I think it's clear, though, he's not interested to be like a head coach at UTEP.
I don't think so.
I don't think that's like what I mean, it's either be a coordinator at a quality Power 5 opportunity and then use that to kind of maybe move up back into the game. And he's got to be hungry because, I mean, this job, I mean, tarnished him as a coach.
Tarnished his legacy, his coaching legacy. And he still has time to kind of spruce that up, to refurbish his legacy.
Yeah, and once again, he didn't talk anything about Nebraska, but it would have been interesting to hear his thoughts on the Trev Alberts time and some of the things that happened here in Lincoln, particularly because he was on the ground floor of a lot of these things.
He was, but he has no one to blame but himself.
No,
though.
You're right.
I mean, he was disappointing. I think at his core, he would admit that he just had a very disappointing tenure here. How could you say it any other way? He was 16-31. I mean, you got to go back to Bill Jennings in the 50s and early 60s, Sean, to find a record that bad.
And there were a group of hardcore people back in that 2022 season that really thought that we should have been writing he should be fired when they were 3-9.
The 2022 season.
Oh, the 21 season. Excuse me.
2021
season.
Yeah.
And, all those games, they lost close games. And, they took Michigan down on the wire, who was in the college.
Hey, listen, I wrote a column after the Purdue game when they lost at home that was pretty critical of Frost. And I got hammered by the other side that said, you're being too hard on Scott. Remember when they lost to Purdue? I hammered him pretty good in that column and got a lot of flack from people that said, you got to get off. What's your deal? Get off Frost's back. So you hear it both sides, but you're right. And we thought, hey, it's going to play out in 2022, one way or the other.
It played out quickly.
And then it played out quickly. That's what I would say to people who try to push that narrative on you and I and others. 2021, if I would have called for Scott's head, there would have been a lot of people angry at me. There would have been a lot of people pissed in the Nebraska fans.
I think everybody wanted, before they ended it and pulled the plug, they wanted to make sure.
Exactly.
And the way they played in 21, taking Ohio State deep in the fourth quarter.
Late in the season.
They were tied with Michigan in the last minute of the game.
Right.
I mean, every game was close. So I think a lot of people are like, okay, they played the toughest. I mean, they played 8 teams that won 9 or 10 or more games.
Right. I guarantee if you would have called for his head at the close to the tail end of that season, it would have caused a lot of problems for you. I mean, it would have. There would have been people that agreed, but there have been a lot of people that disagreed. I thought you let it play out, and like you said, it played out. It played out very quickly in 2022.
And I don't think Trev in 21 was necessarily ready to go through that kind of
I don't think he was.
He was only a few months on the job.
Right.
And I think in 22, he had plenty of time.
He had his ducks in a row.
He had months to get Matt Rule lined up.
Right. So the stat that you have to mention in this conversation is Scott was 4-21 in games decided by 7 or fewer points. That's the critical stat. 4-21 in games decided by 7 or fewer. He couldn't get over the hump. I thought he didn't do a good job addressing special teams out of the gate. If you remember what a debacle it was at the kicker position. I thought one of the things that really hurt Scott out of the gate was now he would maybe hammer me for saying this, but I just thought he had a kind of a blasé attitude about special teams. He didn't even know who the kickers were. I mean, it did that. Now he got better. They got better at special teams. He after he was under the gun, after he was under the gun.
Yeah, that 21 out of 25 games. Using a gambling analogy, it'd be like playing blackjack and having like odds winning cards and losing 21 out of 25 times.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
I mean, it's hard to do.
It is.
It's hard to do.
It's not just bad luck, though. I mean, you saw the games. They were coming up short for reasons.
I mean, think about Colorado in 2019. You had 2/3 of that stadium. You're up 17-3 at half. You played probably the 2 best quarters of the Frost era.
And then what happened?
And then you opened the 3rd quarter with a delay of game penalty. You get the football.
Yeah.
You got that stadium. I mean, this fan base is ready to explode.
It was
in Colorado, and to take over that place. And then it flipped to the point where you had, as you would say, grown men grabbing their junk and flipping off Nebraska fans.
It was ugly scene.
Oh,
memorable.
But they
ugly.
start the 3rd quarter with a delay of game. And then from there, it was just like they allowed that flea flicker. I mean, but those moments just haunted for us. The Michigan State misfire on the rugby punt. I mean,
those were the 2 big ones. Colorado, the loss there where they blew the big lead. And I'll never forget the rugby punt as long as I live. As long as I live. I rarely am amazed by anything anymore, but I couldn't believe that the punter missed his mark by 30 yards.
Michigan State had not gotten a first down the entire second half, and they lost the game
because of that punt. Because that guy had an open field to run it back on. The punter missed his mark.
Oh, he was hurt too.
Yeah. Well, whatever, but somehow, and I just remember we have such a great view at these stadiums from above, and you just saw it unfold. It was just like, oh my God, they have nobody to tackle.
It was kind of like when you just catch a punt in warm-ups and there's no one around you. Like that's how that
kind of was. Like, yeah, it's like they're going to lose this game.
Then he had a 20-yard head of steam to start running before you could get to him.
Oh, I hate to say this, but it was breathtaking to watch, like in a bad way. You're like, they're going to lose this game.
The guy that called that punt play was Ross Ells, former Husker assistant coach, Lincoln native.
He was coaching at Michigan.
He was
State.
Special teams coordinator.
Yeah.
Ted Gilmore was the receivers coach.
That's wonderful.